All right, so number 2 on the agenda was just a feedback thread that I wanted to link, and I'm going to refrain from mentioning. But so I think it's a good place for us to look. I think it's I'm not sure if I'm happy or frustrated or what about the feature being so positively received with like so much commotion and noise and sort of like social action around it. It's sort of mind-blowing to me, but I think that sort of speaks to like a different awareness in general about GitLab sort of thing versus the feature in general. But I think there's things we can learn about that feature, and so it's obviously a good way for us to get more information and insight into how people are perceiving it in other places. So want to make sure we saw so we could take a look. And Annabelle, thanks for adding a bunch of other ideas. And yeah, we can look for issues and try and link them all up and see what we've got or don't have, or what's missing and what's not, and then go from there.
Yeah. Do we have, so I was surprised too, because I didn't realize people liked it so much. I thought it was kind of only useful for really large MRs. And after watching so many of our internal users reviewing merge requests, I don't remember seeing that open very much. I could be wrong. I just don't remember. Do we have data on how many people use it or have it open? And I can't check this anymore because Snowplow debugger extension will not work. I have uninstalled everything. I have reinstalled Chrome. I have restarted my computer. I've tried it on Firefox. I've screen shared with 2 people to figure out why I can't get that extension to work. It's just so classic. This would happen to me, but I don't know. I'm gonna blame whatever our what is this? That little spyware thing we have, Sentinel.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what it is. But anyway, if we knew how many people.
She left.
I got nothing.
Got nothing. You don't know. I don't think it's instrumented. I'm gonna look. Welcome back.
Sorry, I quit Zoom. Please continue.
You're so frustrated. You just like, I'm out. No, I don't. So I don't think it's instrumented. It's not in the big like instrumentation epic listed as something, and it's not on the Mal dashboard. So it might be. I'll have to look. I don't know if it got instrumented like via like SAS and Snowplow only, but we can look around and see. And then, yeah, it would help to know, because I think people who use it are sort of reliant on it, and I think people who don't use it sort of don't use it and don't notice. So maybe that's just where it is. All right, let's talk about number 3. So number 3, which thanks for bringing this here, Annabelle. I pinged you on an issue. We had spoken weeks ago about auth checks on uploads and how we were going to enforce authentication, and if projects were private, then we were going to keep them private, and we weren't going to sort of do anything about that, and we were trying to avoid settings and sort of follow default best practices. The context here is that we rolled this out and we got to like 10 or 15% on the rollout, and support started getting feedback that things were broken. And so we didn't even make it very far. And the broken pieces are in service desk. And this gets complicated because service desk, by design, the people that you are emailing do not have GitLab accounts, right? Because it's like Zendesk sort of in that help desk nature. And so by design, those people don't have accounts, and therefore they cannot authenticate to the uploads, even if you wanted them to. And so there's literally nothing that we can do about it. It's not like we can say, oh, you have to be logged in, you have to go to it. Like there's nothing for them to go to. And so in the thread that I linked you to, up above, there was a bit of a conversation. There was some more conversation in Slack. So I can find that Slack thread. But the crux is, we could go down a path and like build logic to account for service desk. And there's some upcoming features that might make that possible that could maybe do it more automatically. But we are, in the interest of iteration and sort of not having to spend many, many months dealing with uploads, the sort of fastest path is to go back to the setting route. And I don't think it's ideal. And I agree with you on sort of like all of the purposes of, now we're stuck with this setting forever. We are likely stuck with a setting forever, are problematic. But I think it's the only way to get us to solve the pain for people who have uploads that they don't want to be public, to allow them to prevent that and sort of like send it down an authenticated path. And so that is sort of the backstory and where we're at on this. So I'll stop there and then see if that helps clear it up or if you've got more questions.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I'm not really sure how service desk and how that works and how companies use the service desk and Zendesk and stuff like that in specifics. Is it completely unreasonable? This might be like the worst question ever. It's completely unreasonable to ask them to have GitLab accounts, right? There's no way they'd all be added to this GitLab project so that they could be authenticated when they get these Zendesk service desk.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that's, are you familiar with like support ticketing systems at all? Like familiarity with like being a like someone who submits a support ticket?
No, not really.
Okay. Yeah, like if you submit support tickets, right, like you typically do that via email. And then in the case of like Zendesk, which is what we use for support, our agents have a portal that they log into. Like I think you can probably log into Zendesk, right, and see our customers' tickets. Mm-hmm. But those customers can't generally log into Zendesk, although in some cases they can. But they can't generally log into Zendesk and like deal with that and respond there. They get an email back, and that's how they sort of transact on their side of it, is all via email, not with any sort of account in the ticketing system.
Right. Okay. And then I saw a comment on there somewhere that mentioned generating a separate URL to that image somehow. That's a huge effort, I assume.
Yeah. So yes, it relies on a feature that's called email participants. And email participants as a feature does not exist yet. Like it's there and it's feature flagged, but they haven't widely rolled it out. And so I think we could sit and wait and sort of see how all that plays out. But I think there's a lot of unknowns with sort of what the impact to email participants is. And largely that feature, when I went and looked, is geared around the ability to basically add someone to an issue by using their email address versus like if they didn't have a GitLab account. It'd be like a way to like add random people to issues that don't necessarily have GitLab accounts. So like it's a path, but I don't think it's there yet on the service desk side. And it introduces sort of a whole new scheme that we haven't looked at yet.
Okay, so I'll plan going forward, setting at the group level here for protecting or for requiring authentication for images uploads, and also reverting the revert of the community contribution, or is that kind of still tabled for now?
I don't think we'd revert the revert. I think what it would do is basically design the path and place and framework for diffs and how we want to do that. The diffs one was like project level only. It was a setting under visibility, which maybe that's where we ultimately want to put these, but I don't know. So I think this is like we will do the image one. And then depending on the lift, we'll contribute the diff one, or it at least gives a path for the diff one. And I think like doing this from the beginning of group level and project level and making sure we cascade is sort of key to making sure we get it right versus having to like try and take something back up and cascade it down or the other way. So yeah, I don't think it reverts the revert. It clarifies our stance on a setting or no setting, which is what we had said to begin with. We said like the goal was no setting. If we found out during the rollout that we were going to be, if we needed to have a setting, then we would revisit sort of the diff one as well, under that same premise. I think the UX asks, so like the ask specific for you is sort of like, and I think potentially collaborate with Tori is sort of where does this setting go? I don't have thoughts or opinions on it.
Okay, great. Yeah, that all makes sense. I'll think about that, where this setting should go. So we're not thinking about the diffs at all for this milestone or even next. It's sort of.
I would account for them in thinking about like what this is. So like if it's a new setting under somewhere that's like, I would account for both of those being there, and I would account for both of them being in the project wherever we put them. But from an implementation standpoint, we'll do one. We won't do both, if that makes sense. But unless for some reason we think that the settings would go in wildly different places. But I think it seems conceivable that they'd go in very similar spots.
Would they, and I haven't looked into it again, I'm just talking, would it make sense to group them together? Or do you think they should be separate, like never show diffs in emails and also authenticate for images?
I think they're different. And I think they're different based on some of the feedback we had seen. And this is, it sort of seemed like we were going to get forced into a setting either way, because internal instances to GitLab don't necessarily, they might be private because they're like offline or they're behind a firewall and you can't access them. And so like the instance is private, but the projects are public, even though they sort of don't want things going in different places. So like the private wouldn't have necessarily cascaded to those. And so those people might want to toggle this on. Diffs is similar. We're seeing a lot of feedback in the diff thread from PubSec customers that have certain requirements about code not being able to hit email, but that might be different than like the visibility of the project or the instance in that regard as well. So yeah, I think they're independent settings. I think the default value of the settings, well, I think the default value of the, man, that's complicated. Part of me wants the default value of the image setting to be true, and that we would enforce authentication for like a net new project. But for diffs, I want those included in email, but now I don't know. So that might be another thing to think about, is what the default, what sane default should be. That creates an interesting paradigm.
Great. I don't have any other questions for this. I'll take a look at the issue again.
Yeah, and I think this is the feature flag issue. The issue to probably go back to is probably the one, we might have closed the feature issue actually. We may need a new issue to sort of like do all of this if we do, if you want to move it out of the, yeah. Up to you. The main issue is still open. So here, I'll link the main issue in the agenda. All right, Amy, you've got the next one.
I do. So I have a community contribution from someone that we are super familiar with. And I don't know whether I am out of touch with the terminology that's being used or if my own biases are in play. He is suggesting a couple of wording changes to the merge strategies section of the admin UI. And I don't know whether I like them or not. And I wanted to get a reaction from, honestly, I really wanted to bother Pedro because we've been butting heads over this kind of terminology for milestones now. What's one more, even if it's not for this group? So Annabelle, welcome to the discussion already in progress. The issue that we've circled around multiple times is, when is it appropriate to use very specific technical terminology, and when do we need to be informal and friendly? Because I think that's the difference in these lines that he's proposing. If you click through to the changes tab, you know what, let me just share my screen because I can highlight this nonsense. I hope this is the right tab. Let's find out. Yes, I'm an adult. Awesome. Okay, so this first one right here, changing from fast forward merges only to this line. I like this. I like this change. I'm fine with that one. It's the second one that I'm just not sure on. If you'd quizzed me on what a semi-linear merge was, I wouldn't know. But I don't know if that's a gap in my knowledge or if that's a gap in everybody's knowledge. Guys,
I'm sorry, my furniture is being delivered right now. It's like the worst timing ever. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I can recap. It's cool. Tell me what the last thing that you heard clearly was.
You like the first one, but you're not sure about semi-linear merge.
Yeah, line 24. If you'd asked me what a semi-linear merge was without me having stuff, documentation in front of me, I would give you this blank look of, I would have to go Google that. But I don't know if that's just me or if that's everybody.
It's not just you. I don't know what it is either. But maybe a better person to ask would be a developer.
Yeah. I just got this merge request a few minutes ago, so.
In this example, is he proposing mostly more technical examples?
The first line he proposed, I agree with. The second line, I don't know. Kai, you're making a face. Use your words.
I was just gonna say I'm largely willing to defer to Mike,
okay,
who I think approved it, and I say that because Mike and Peter have been going back and forth extensively in the issues about the wholesale changes to these settings. So there's like a source code has a larger plan to sort of redo these settings entirely.
Yep.
And so I imagine, and I've been following the discussion, Mike and Peter have been spending a lot of time going back and forth on what these things actually mean in the way that they're like currently set up and what the impacts are. And so I imagine this is a clarification to that they both understand well because they've had extensive conversations about it. And those of us who every time those emails come in and I read them and I go, I'm glad that source code don't have like good feelings about. And so I think that's how I'm thinking about this. I think if Mike thinks that this helps, then I think that that's fine. I would say it's likely to be like a semi short-lived change in some regards, right? If there's like a different plan to address this in a larger way. So like it might not be that big of a deal.
Okay. Okay. Thanks
Yeah. And this is a secondary string, right? So it's just this
Correct.
basically, instead of, I think the change is really, instead of being specific about what could make a semi-linear merge not possible. So it used to say when there's a merge conflict. I think the actual
it's changing this line right here. When there's a merge conflict, the user is given the option to rebase.
Yeah, I think what we're changing is when a semi-linear merge is not possible, which means there's more than just a merge conflict can be a cause of why the user's given an option to rebase. And I think that's basically the way to think about this change, is like it's removing the like specificity of merge conflict being the only reason for this and changing it to something else. I don't know that semi-linear merge is like better, but in the context of it being under the semi-linear history option, you're likely to read through those and like, I think,
figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, I will go ahead and approve the changes and carry on. It's whenever I hit a term like this and I think, I'm not sure. I assume.
Yes. If you want, I think if you want the full history, you go read the issues where they've been discussing merge strategies back and forth, and then you might walk away with a better understanding, or you will have seen lots of graphs of commit trees and have very little better understanding.
Literally had a meeting about that yesterday.
Yeah, perfect. So cool.
This is why I cannot leave create. I can only be set free. That's all I have. Do we have anything else after my item?
I think we're good.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone. It's good to see you. Annabelle, hopefully your furniture turns out well. And
take after photos.
You're drilling, so I'm a little nervous. Okay, yeah, have a good day. I'm gonna go watch.
Yeah, bye.